सीजन चल रहा है और मल्टीपल ट्रिगर्स वहाँ से भी बाजार के लिए आ रहे हैं। सिप्ला के जो नतीजे थे वो अनुमान के मुताबिक रहे हैं और नतीजों पर कंपनी के ग्लोबल CEO एंड MD उमंग वोरा ने ET नाउ के मैनेजिंग एडिटर निकुंज दालमिया से बात की। एक बार सुनते हैं क्या कहा उमंग वोरा ने।
Let's first understand the big picture, and the big picture, Umang, frankly, is quite encouraging for Cipla. The India business has stabilized, margins are looking decent, but are they here to stay given that margins for the India business have improved because of cost cutting?
Yeah, great question, Nikunj, and thank you for having me. Good to be connecting with you again. I think on the India business, let's just talk the India business. The quarter includes numbers which are fairly muted for COVID. And actually, most of our field are back. We're almost resumed a full 100% field activity. I think there's some conferences, etc., that are not taking place. But other than that, I think most of our cost base, the way we would like it, I think a large portion of it is already back. It is our endeavor to maintain the margins. I think we've signaled at the beginning of the year that we will keep it around 22%. I think more than just the costs, the big thing, Nikunj, is the input costs and the supply chain variability. That is actually something that will impact the business going forward. Actually, all pharma businesses, not just us. But I think we have operating leverage to be able to offset that.
So how serious are these supply chain issues? Because just about every industry seems to be indicating that as of now, their understanding of the supply chain is quite complex. Nobody is giving us a comprehensive answer.
Well, I think it is complex, and that's probably why the comprehensiveness doesn't come. And the reason for that is, Nikunj, to some extent, predictability has gone down. You see, the two components here is that we are seeing all kinds of impact. We're seeing the impact of the China power crisis. We're seeing the impact of ships containers not being at the ports that they need to be. And it's a little bit of everything, all those components coming up. I think most corporations have responded by either taking up the inventory levels so that we don't get hit by variability in the supply chain. And it's been but I think what's also happened is predictability is one thing, input costs rising is the other. And I think that has been fairly significant across the chain. We are beginning to see, I would say in some way, reinflation in the cost base. Commodities are all up. But I think most companies are now beginning to look at operating leverage to be able to bring down. So there cannot be a comprehensive answer because predictability in terms of just the way goods move are very significant in the world right now.
What happens to the COVID portfolio? And fingers crossed, looks like we are not in for a big third wave. So what happens to your COVID portfolio and also the inventory or the COVID inventory you're sitting on?
So the COVID inventory, so let's talk about the portfolio. We believe that what we've seen in Q3 is more or less around the level where COVID would stabilize, right? And it could be slightly lower than this, but some part of COVID is always going to exist. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where 12,000 or 10,000 COVID patients won't be there because in some way it's going to be like the flu. It's going to stay in our society. So I think the impact of COVID will obviously begin to get muted. I think we are sitting with some inventory and some provisions we've already started taking, Nikunj, for the inventory that we have. And, over the next 2 to 3 quarters, we will determine appropriately what is the right inventory to carry for COVID and not carry. We see COVID more as becoming regional as against national, right? So we will continue to see localized outbreaks of COVID depending on community settings, etc. And you're right, they're not going to be as significant in our view as we've seen already in wave 1 and 2.